The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest stories in the NBA.
Keegan Murray will miss the next 4 to 6 weeks with a UCL tear in his left thumb that will require surgery.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast.
Keegan Murray, who exited game 3 or game 2 of the preseason rather with a thumb injury, and we were hoping it was just something minor, a little tweak, and something that that just held him out for that game, and the Kings were erring on the side of caution that it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Well, it's a big deal. The Kings announced today, they put out a press release that forward Keegan Murray suffered a torn ulnar collateral, I think that's how you say it, ulnar collateral ligament. I'm not a doctor. Can you tell? A torn UCL of the left thumb. He will undergo surgery and be reevaluated in approximately 4 to 6 weeks. That doesn't mean he will be back. That doesn't mean he will be cleared. He will be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. Keegan Murray out for the Sacramento Kings to start the season. So let's ballpark this a little bit. If we're pulling up the Sacramento Kings schedule and we're looking at the next 4 to 6 weeks, let's go with the worst possible news first. 6 weeks from today is Sunday, November 23rd. That's 6 weeks from today. The Kings play in Denver. They wrap up a 5-game road trip on Saturday, November 22nd. That is 17 games to start the season that Keegan Murray is missing if he takes the full 6 weeks before being cleared to return. Now, if it's 4 weeks, we're talking Sunday, November 9th, I believe. Yes, Sunday, November 9th, which is significantly better. The Kings play on Sunday, November 9th against the Minnesota Timberwolves in Sacramento. That is let's see, quick math, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10 games into the season. So likely Keegan Murray will be out between 10 to 17 games to start this season. Now, if you didn't know already, the Kings' schedule to start the season is pretty brutal. Their first 2 games are very gettable. They open up next Wednesday, not this coming Wednesday, but next Wednesday, October 22nd, in Phoenix against the Suns. Their home opener is that Friday against the Utah Jazz. Then here's how the schedule plays out. The Lakers, the Thunder, the Bulls, the Bucks, Denver for the first time, Golden State, the Thunder again, Minnesota, Denver again, Atlanta, Minnesota again, San Antonio, the Thunder for a third time, Denver for a third time. We were already concerned that the Sacramento Kings, as they were getting kind of acclimated and comfortable with each other and learning and fully becoming comfortable with this new Doug Christie system and era here in Sacramento with this new identity. We already worried that they could fall into a bit of a hole in the start of the season that would be really, really tough to climb out of. Now, with Keegan Murray likely being out until at the best mid-November, at the worst like late November to hopefully, knock on wood, not early December, the Kings could be, I don't want to like be extreme and say like out of it completely, but they could be in a pretty significant hole in the Western Conference that is just brutal to climb their way out of. Again, if he misses the full 6 weeks, we're talking missing 3 games versus Denver, missing 3 games versus Oklahoma City, missing 2 games versus the Timberwolves, missing a game against the Lakers. LeBron James, to be fair, will not be playing in that game against the Lakers. Missing a game against the Bucks, missing a game against the Golden State Warriors. Like it's obvious to say like, oh, losing a player of Keegan Murray's magnitude is a significant loss. Every team has to deal with injuries as they go through the season. But the Sacramento Kings are not equipped at all to lose Keegan Murray. They're not. They do not have any depth at that position. Keegan Murray is quite literally it. He already bears the brunt of so many defensive responsibilities, including guarding guards. He's been doing that in Sacramento for the last couple of years. The Sacramento Kings significantly lack depth from like 6'7" to 6'9". They don't have enough of those guys. So Keegan has had to carry the load of that position for like by himself, really, for at least the last couple of seasons, really since he's joined the Sacramento Kings, but especially since Harrison Barnes' departure. So I'll be honest with you. We'll dive into this later on in the podcast when we start talking about like who steps into the starting lineup and how Doug Christie adjusts his rotations to try and make up for this. But I'm not saying it would have been easier or better for the Sacramento Kings to lose DeMar DeRozan or lose Zach LaVine or lose Domantas Sabonis. Of course, all of those injuries could significantly cripple this organization, this team, and their chances of making the playoffs in the Western Conference. But with the exception of maybe Dennis Schroeder, because he's the only point guard on this roster, losing Keegan is one of the worst possible things that could happen to this team. Now, it's not to a point where it's like, well, punt the season, it's over. Like, if you want to feel that way, you can feel that way. I'm not going to tell you to feel one way or another. You can process this news however you want to process this. Like, I'm not saying, I certainly know Doug Christie's not looking at this and going, well, my chances are done. They're kaput. Like, the Kings are not going to tank. They're not going to do anything of that sort now that Keegan Murray is out. However, he misses 17 games. We'll see what the Kings record is after those 17 games, and that might accelerate the decision-making process or of whether or not the Kings move on from guys like DeMar DeRozan or try and move on from some bigger names before the trade deadline even comes around. But this is a rough blow for the Sacramento Kings to try to overcome. Again, if you're just looking at like the measurements, right? You're just looking at height. Keegan Murray is listed as 6'8". Isaac Jones is listed as 6'9", but cannot move like Keegan Murray, cannot do the things that Keegan Murray does. Isaac Jones pretty much listed as a center. Other than that, you've got like Plowden, McDermott, DeRozan, Nick Clifford, all listed at 6'6". And then you have Eubanks, Sabonis, Saric, all listed at 6'10". Like that, between 6'6" and 6'10", you've got four or two guys, and only one of them does what Keegan Murray can do, and that's Keegan Murray. What does Doug Christie do now that Keegan Murray is gone? Where does he go? We laid out the lack of depth at Keegan Murray's position. What does he do with this roster that is extremely guard heavy and also kind of undersized at the center position? Well, you have pretty much one option. You go small. But how small are you willing to go? You already have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan starting at your 2 and your 3. LaVine 6'5", DeRozan 6'6". So you're already undersized, kinda, not terribly undersized, but a 6'6" small forward, a bit on the smaller side for DeMar DeRozan, but we've expected this. He was already set to be there. What do you do at the 4? Do you go maybe the route of like Dario Saric? Do you throw Drew Eubanks out there and go for kind of a taller front court than Keegan? I have my concerns about that. I mean, there's already massive concerns defensively for the Sacramento Kings. And replacing Keegan Murray with someone who's 6'10 and not exactly horizontally quick, I think will result in a lot of bad for Sacramento. I think there's one solution in mind. Nick Clifford, you're up. Welcome to the NBA, kid. Welcome to the NBA. Trial by fire, buddy. Your opportunity just opened in front of you. You're starting, and best of luck. Like, that's what I would do at this point. That's what I would do. If the Kings felt that, like, let me put it this way. Would starting Dario Saric or Drew Eubanks at the 4, does that increase your chances of winning significantly compared to having three guys that are 6'5", 6'6" out there in your starting lineup and having Nick Clifford and DeMar DeRozan swap whatever is the easier defensive assignment at the 3 and the 4? Nick can play defense. Nick can stretch the floor. He's 3 inches shorter than Keegan Murray, 2 inches shorter, really, than Keegan Murray is, but has good wingspan, good defensive instincts. Put Nick Clifford in. That's what I would do. I don't know if Doug's going to do that. I don't know if he feels and the Kings feel that Nick Clifford is ready for that responsibility. But hey, man, that you're already looking at like sink or swim territory, not for Nick, for the Sacramento Kings. Right? Like we talked about in the first segment, this could completely derail your season before you even have a chance to get it going. You could fall too far behind to where even if Keegan Murray comes back and you still have 60 some odd games remaining in the West, with that start to the schedule, 60 games still won't be enough, potentially, with how bad the start of this season can go with Keegan Murray's absence. Put Nick Clifford out there. Give him a shot. That's what I personally would want to see. That's what I think is the best move for the Sacramento Kings going forward. Will I blame Nick Clifford if he's not ready? No, but look, it's a different circumstance because Nick Clifford was the 24th overall pick and Keegan Murray was a top lottery pick when the Kings drafted him. But Keegan was thrown into the fire as a rookie too, on a team, Beam Team 1, that had playoff aspirations and actually made the playoffs. And Keegan was forced to sink or swim pretty quickly. They simplified his role. He became that sharp-shooting three-point shooter on the offensive end. And these were the early days of Keegan Murray's defense where we saw potential, but he wasn't the defender that he's turned into now. But he still was able to hold it down, at least. And the Kings were desperate for a guy of his size. Nick, do the same thing. Throw Nick Clifford out there, have him hunt 3, space the floor from 3-point range, have him defend the 3 or the 4, whoever is better, and let him learn the NBA the hard way. I don't think anybody on this planet is going to blame Nick Clifford if he struggles right away. And even if Nick Clifford plays well, the Sacramento Kings may still struggle regardless because of the significance of the loss of Keegan Murray. But to me, like, there's no better option than putting Nick Clifford out there and giving him the opportunity right away. What else is there? Like, what else is there? I mean, you could go uber small and you could put Keon Ellis in at the 2 and move Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan down to the 3 and the 4. But now you have Dennis Schroeder, who's 6'1", and Keon Ellis, who's listed as 6'4". He's closer to 6'3", but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Listed as 6'4". So that's your backcourt. Good defensive potential with that backcourt, but now you got LaVine and DeMar DeRozan who are playing undersized. Offensively, I'm not too concerned about how that would end up. Defensively, of course, I'm concerned with almost every single one of these options. Nick Clifford is the lesser of all the evils on the defensive end, if you ask me. And again, like we talked about, you could go bigger, you could go Dario Saric, you could go Drew Eubanks. I guess maybe you could try and get away with Isaac Jones, but I don't think defensively they could handle the responsibility of defending forwards and sometimes wings that you will face at that 4 spot.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
It is a question burning a hole in the Orlando Magic this preseason.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast.
Let's start here. It's the preseason. I don't know how many times I need to warn this or say this or preface everything I say when I cover these games and talk about these games. It's the preseason. Lineups are weird. Paolo Banchero and Desmond Bane did not play in Sunday's game against the Miami Heat. Neither did Norman Powell. Neither did Bam Adebayo. Lineups are different. Stats are different. Players are working on themselves as much as they're working on integrating with the team. You expect certain mistakes to happen. What you're looking for are hints of how the thing comes together. You're looking for hints of how the pieces of this puzzle ultimately mesh and fit together. And that is not always easy to see. You can't quite trust all the stats. We're going to have some fun with preseason stats in this episode. But I want to preface that. By saying you can't always trust the stats. But the stuff isn't meaningless either. It does say something. And so as we come to the end of this preseason, one more game left after the Magic's win over the Miami Heat on Sunday. We now have 3 games of watching this Magic team, of a public display of what the Magic are trying to do. And we all know what the big issue is. Yes, the Magic have not been like a fully operational battle station except for Friday against Philadelphia. But we know what the Magic need to do. They need to score. They need to score more points. They need to be more efficient on offense. They need to make shots. They need to do all these things. And the Magic know that even though adding Desmond Bane would be a big boost to all this, they needed something more than just to add the shooter to make the whole thing work. They added a shooter last year. It didn't work. They need a change of mindset. And so throughout this training camp, throughout the time since the Magic got together on the floor, they have made it abundantly clear that their goal is to play faster, want to move the ball, want to get out and transition more, want to take advantage of the offense that their defense should be creating, the opportunities their defense is creating. They want their defense to be the base of everything, but they know that you can't win in this league at any level, even with an elite defense, if your offense just isn't going to score. And so what we have seen this preseason, what we've seen the Magic do is try to make, I don't know if it's a radical transformation of their offense, but certainly a radical transformation of their mindset, of the way that they are attacking this season. The Magic's offense has been good in the preseason. Here comes your fun with preseason stats. The Orlando Magic scored 120 points against the Miami Heat. They scored 62 points in the first half. They came out of this game with a 116. Let me make sure I have my numbers right here. So excuse me for double checking my numbers here. A 116.5 offensive rating. 116.5 with their main starters and minus Paolo, minus Desmond Bane. For the preseason so far, the Magic are 4th in the league in offensive rating at 119.9 points per 100 possessions. Now that's not going to last. We'll talk a little bit later about where the problem spots are and why that number may not be fully accurate. But the Magic's offense is different. It is undeniable that the Magic's offense is different. They are doing something different. something that means something that matters. And the question is, will this last into the regular season? Is this something that can stick? Now, I'm not convinced the Magic will be top 4 in the league in offensive rating. There are still a lot of things struggle with. And again, we're going to talk about one of those big struggles and one of the big areas the Magic need to continue to improve on here in just a moment. I'm not going to ignore the issues. But I do believe that the Magic are on the right track with what they're doing. And I do believe there is something that feels very real about the way the Magic are playing. The pace, the intensity, the speed at which they're playing. Yes, they're making mistakes. Again, I want to talk about those in a minute. But they are a different team on offense. They are taking advantage of their strengths, of these jumbo-sized playmakers that they have, and trusting them and empowering them to lead and attack. They are going to be a better offensive team. And yes, it's because they have more talent. Desmond Bane is a huge addition. You don't know what this team looks like with Jalen Suggs. Tyus Jones, maybe not doing the things that we want him to do statistically, but he has been a stabilizing force for this team and has done very well. It does feel very much like this offense is real. That this offense, again, not going to be top of the league, not the best offense in the league, but it does feel very much like there are concepts within this offense and things that the Magic are doing that are going to translate and are going to deliver the Magic the results that they're looking for, the things that they are looking to accomplish. And that is a huge piece of this puzzle. That is a huge, huge, huge step for a team that, we all know these numbers, was 27th in league in offensive rating last year, has not been outside the bottom 10 in defensive rating since 2012 when Dwight Howard was on the team. It doesn't have to be very much, but the Magic do seem like they have taken a big step. And again, Sunday's game, for whatever a preseason game is worth, continues that pattern, continues that trend. All of these games, all 3 of these preseason games, have followed a similar pattern. When the Magic are aggressive, getting downhill, not turning the ball over, again, we'll talk about that in a minute, moving the ball, they are pretty darn unstoppable. They are taking advantage of the strengths on this team. The Magic aren't even shooting well yet. Orlando shot only 32.5%, 13 for 40 from 3 in this game. They're not even shooting well yet. And they're already scoring a ton of points. Everyone on this roster can feel that it's different. Everyone on this roster acknowledges, like, no, we're scoring. We're doing things on offense. It's different. And they're embracing this identity. I do think the Magic's offense has taken a step. I don't want to say a leap because I don't know how good it's going to be. And look, we haven't seen this team at full strength. Paolo, Franz, and Dez played together in Friday's game against Philadelphia, and they did some good things, but they also had their struggles. They still got to learn how to play together, and hopefully they'll all play Thursday. And certainly, it doesn't feel like Paolo and Franz especially are like turning the gear all the way up. We're going to talk about that when we get to the box score, when we talk about Franz's game. That doesn't feel like they have completely taken over. It feels like they're looking to just get a feel for where their spots are going to be, where their teammates are going to be, and they're trying to overpass a little bit. But if the Magic's goal this season was to improve their offense, improve their offensive mindset, it sure feels like they have.
Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, on drinks, on merch, on a bigger group if you want. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer it gets to first pitch. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. Gametime has last minute tickets and zone deals for big savings, like 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matches. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed.
Bucks remained perfect in the preseason, and we got to see Giannis. What were the other big takeaways?
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast.
Camille, we had a game last night. We treated the post-gamers a little differently since it's preseason here, but we got to see Giannis for the first time this preseason, and I think we kind of assumed that would be the case, that Doc had kind of hinted at it, so did Giannis, that they won a couple games, and it was all but confirmed over the weekend. But we finally got to see pen to paper here with Giannis and this new group around him.
Yeah, and the thing that stood out to me was the pace still, but just the sheer amount of three-pointers that this group was able to get up in this game. Like, we've heard a lot of conversation throughout the offseason about how getting up more three-pointers was going to be a point of emphasis for this Bucks team. They wanted to be intentional about being a team that was top 5 in the league at three-point attempts. We know last year they were a team that was number 1 in the sense of the percentage that they knocked down the threes, but when it comes to the volume of the threes that they were getting up, they were middle of the pack, I think like 18th or something like that when it comes to the actual attempts per game. And when you look at what they did in this game against Chicago with Giannis finally in the rotation, where I think in the first quarter, they put up like 18 threes in the first quarter alone or something like that. It was just like, okay, I see the gravity of Giannis, and also seeing guys like Kevin Porter Jr. using his gravity of being able to touch paint, kick out. Cole Anthony, when he got in with the bench lineups, touch paint, kick out, and creating these threes for other guys. Like, it was just like, okay, I can see the vision. And even looking at the preseason numbers, like against the Pistons, they shot 18 to 36 from 3. Against the Heat, they were 13 to 41. They finished this game 20 of 48 from 3. And up until the third quarter, which is when the top 10, I'm assuming, rotation guys were actually playing in this game consistently, when they all checked out by the end of the third quarter, the Bucks were 18 of 40 from 3 through 3 quarters. So, like, the sheer amount of threes with Giannis in the lineup too, and them just getting the movement, like, it was unselfish ball. The ball movement was fun. Like, I can get down with a full season of ball movement and play like this.
They took 36.5 threes per game last year, which was in the middle of the pack, as you noted. It was also, coincidentally, what they averaged in the preseason. Like, those numbers in preseason play, they made 13.5 per game. They took 36.5 per game. They shot 37%, which among NBA teams was third best in the preseason. So if we use last year as a barometer, it was pretty consistent from preseason to regular season. And now on the preseason here, Bucks are still in the middle of the pack-ish, but that 36.5 has gone up to 41.5. They're shooting 41% on those threes. They're making 17 per game. You got one international, the East Melbourne team is in there, so they're 12th among NBA teams. But yeah, we've seen 2 of the 3 games with 40-plus three-point attempts, and I would assume I don't know that John Horst or Doc or anybody on the team would come out and say there is a goal in a set number of threes for this team to get up, but I would assume it's going to be there in the low 40s. If we do that, that's anywhere from like 6 to 8 more threes per game. And if we're still making close to 40% of those and they're quality looks, well, right there, then we're talking about knocking down 3 more, which is, 9 points there per game on a nightly basis.
Yeah, and I heard in Giannis's post game last night, as you mentioned, I haven't heard anyone say a number, but Giannis threw out 45 a few times of like getting up 45 threes,
right,
45 threes.
go.
And I was like, okay, is that the internal target that we're just kind of hearing Giannis just kind of subconsciously just say out loud of like, yeah, trying to get up 45 threes or so. But if that's where they're aiming to get to, if you look at like last year's 3-point attempts, and I would assume that this year you continue to see that trend upwards because more teams, of course, continue to take more threes. But Last year, the Celtics led the league in 3-point attempts per game with 47.8. And Golden State Warriors were in second place with 42.3. Chicago had 42 and Cleveland had 41.5. And those were the only 4 teams that shot at least 40 threes per game last regular season. So to hear Giannis just kind of throw out that 45 number, again, don't know if that's like an internal directive of like, this is our goal. But just hearing the number made me go like, I could actually see the pathway forward for them being able to get up that amount of threes after kind of seeing this preseason game, because prior I was like, I hear y'all of wanting to get up more threes, but you're also losing a Damian Lillard who got up 9 threes by himself. So like, how are you going to make that up? And seeing the shot selection of guys, like, I don't think many of the threes were bad outside of the last one. I think it was in the first quarter when Kuz had like just shot clock cheese. So he just kind of went up there, but shot clock, that's whatever. And just seeing that was kind of like, okay, like you're seeing Taurean Prince take threes that he would have turned down last year, where the closeout's coming and he's still letting it go. Even Bobby Portis with like these pseudo closeouts that some bigs tend to get, where guys aren't really trying to put their hand up. They're just trying to move their body towards you to make you think this contest is coming, but they're still trying to have their leverage in case the drive comes, and Bobby's just shooting. So seeing guys like that, where it's like the shot selection, like they're just being more, I don't want to say risk averse, but like they're letting it fly.
Aggressive,
like letting it fly. So I think that that's actually a realistic target for this team, kind of seeing them throughout preseason. And beforehand, I had some questions of how they would get there, understanding Giannis's gravity will get them there, but I can see the pathway forward for it.
So by my count, the Bucks are one of 4 teams in the preseason that are taking more than half of their field goals from 3. Do you have a guess on who any of the other teams would be?
Ooh, in preseason, that's tough. Are the Warriors still up there too?
No.
Doesn't make sense.
One of them you've already mentioned.
Chicago.
No.
Cleveland?
No.
Is Boston still?
Boston is still
I
doing
should
it.
have known. The system is still the system, regardless of JT being there or not.
Yeah, Bucks, Grizzlies, Celtics, and Pacers are the 4 teams that are averaging more than half of their field goal attempts are coming from 3 here. I'm going to be curious to see how close that number sits to 50%, because you still have this guy that you don't want taking 3s. So that's an important component there. But the looks that he's going to create, I thought it was kind of the game within the game. The interesting part was kind of seeing how Giannis and Miles Turner are going to fit together here. That was our first time of seeing it in an actual game and not just, a scrimmage or team practice here. And we could see a couple of times on the broadcast too, where those 2 guys were on the bench together, and you could see Giannis and Miles kind of going over, look, I expect you to be here, or maybe you should do this. So starting to see that build up is certainly going to be key.